AI regulatory landscape, balancing innovation and compliance with Professor Letlhokwa Mpedi, Vice Chancellor and Principal at the University of Johannesburg. Moderated by Godfrey Mutizwa, Editor-in-Chief at CNBC Africa. The evolution of artificial intelligence is moving at a pace that few law and policymakers can match. From shaping financial products and services to transforming healthcare diagnostics. From generating media content to influencing what we see and believe online. AI is no longer a future concept. It's ingrained in our daily lives. But the real challenge isn't just regulation. It's shaping the right rules that balance progress with protection, creativity with compliance. And Africa stands at a powerful crossroads. The continent has the opportunity not just to import external models of governance, but to define its own. A regulatory approach grounded in constitutional values, human rights, and the continent's long-term development goals. One that protects citizens from harmful uses like deepfakes while unlocking opportunities unique to Africa's people, markets, and innovators. But this can't happen in isolation. It requires bold collaboration between governments, tech companies, civil society, and the communities most affected. Because ultimately, the goal isn't just to comply. It's to build trust, to protect rights, and to ensure that AI technologies serve everyone, not just a privileged few.
Thank you. Thank you. So the professor and I were together yesterday on another platform, having a very insightful discussion about how we go about improving education on the African continent and how we align industry to the skills that we're producing out of our university as well as institutions of higher learning. So here we are again, and I think one of the ideas that came out of that discussion may very well be pertinent here. But before we go there, I wanted to ask you a very simple question, which I will answer first before I ask you to answer.
Okay.
Is Africa ready for AI regulation? And my answer is that the continent is not ready. If you look at it from the perspective of the private sector, here's a very small example. Which is the largest company by market capitalization in the world? NVIDIA. How much is it worth? $4.4 trillion. When I look at the JSE and I look for sort of like a pure play, if you like, on AI, I come to Foresight. I may well be wrong. And Foresight, I checked up the market cap, $6.4 million. Is that how far we are from the private side? What about from the public side? So, Prof, I come back to the question.
Yeah.
Are we ready in terms of regulating AI?
Godfrey, you know I'm a lawyer by training. I'll say it depends. Well, firstly, I agree with you that we are not ready, but we must also acknowledge that something is happening. Our situation on the continent is a scary one. And the challenge we're facing is not unique to Africa. You look at these big multinational tech companies, many of them have got the computing power that, the entire African continent combined doesn't have. How do you start regulating this type of companies?
Absolutely.
That is a big challenge. I think there's a couple or three governments that have got the computing power that can match the computing power of these multinationals. So that is a starting point. But it doesn't mean we should relax and say, well, we have lost the battle. We need to make sure that, firstly, our lawmakers are well equipped. They understand what they are dealing with. I'm sure if we were to go out there with all due respect and ask our lawmakers, what is AI? I don't know what the outcome, we know what the outcome will be.
I'm not going to answer that.
It will be terrible. So we need to empower our lawmakers, regulators, policymakers, so that they know what they're dealing with. And that way we'll make good progress quickly.
Is there a case of looking at this from a Pan-African perspective, given what you've just demonstrated, our inability to be able to regulate these multinational companies with huge budgets, with huge research capabilities, and versus our own very constrained, even if you go to the public sector fiscal spaces?
Most definitely. If we stand together as a continent, I mean, how many are we on the African continent? I mean, it's a good market size. But if we stand alone and tell a multinational, you do this, they would laugh at us. So we need to stand together as a continent and put our policies out there. And that way, multinationals will look at us and say, we can't lose this entire continent. Because if we don't, take some of these applications. You get an option, it's freemium, you download it, and then you get to a point where you have to accept the terms and conditions. Many of them, they would say, you grant permission to access the microphone, and you say, but this app doesn't need a microphone to operate. Take a calculator.
You're giving away all your rights.
You must give it access to your camera. And it's either you accept that to use the app or you don't. But try and download the same app in Europe. You are not asked those questions.
To be fair, if you look at the way the African Union has approached the African Continental Free Trade Area, there is a digital component of it. And they are making strides in implementing it across the continent. Perhaps there's a starting point. But at the same time, Prof, when you look at the individual countries, I saw a MasterCard report last week speaking about those countries that have been attracting AI-focused investments. At the top sits South Africa, and then you've got Nigeria. And then after that, it just falls away. From a continental perspective, are you seeing evidence that there are governments that are aware even that there is a need to create a framework or a regulatory environment that enables the attraction of this capital?
Most definitely. I mean, you look at, Rwanda, something is happening there. Kenya, Namibia recently had a commission of some sort that is looking into this. So discussions have started.
Fragmented?
But, yes, fragmented, and they are moving at a tortoise pace, snail pace. And that is a problem, because these technologies are moving at a fast pace. We have to keep up.
Absolutely, So what do we do? Let's perhaps, from here, suggest ways in which the continent could approach this. Are we talking here at the AU level? Are we talking here at the regional economic level? Are we talking here at the national level?
There are three levels. I mean, continental level, AU. Regional levels, we've got a few regional economic communities. SADC is silent. Those regional economic communities must be vocal about these issues, but also at a national level. And at a national level, we need to work together. I mean, the public sector must work closely with the private sector, but we also need to bring in ordinary people. We need to work with civil society as well.
If we bring it then to the national level, and I'm going to ask you shortly for what your model framework would look like. If we talk about the national level, and I'm hoping that there are still people from the government who are here who could be listening to this, what kind of collaboration would we be talking about? What kind of structure should we be building for us to be able to put something together that enables money to come in?
A lot is happening, but in a fragmented way. I come from another angle. I'm not an engineer. I'm a lawyer by training, and I've been quite vocal through opinion pieces. We just published a book by Prof Marwala and I, who's an engineer. I'm a lawyer, on AI and the law.
Oh, okay. You didn't bring it here. You could have accidentally showed it to us.
Yes. So what we need is to make sure that our regulatory frameworks, support the development, ethical development of these technologies. That is a starting point, because at the moment, the regulatory frameworks are reactionary in nature, and that is a problem. And if we don't deal with that, there will be a huge gap and we'll be left behind.
So are you saying in South Africa there is no structured approach to this?
I wouldn't say that. Something is being done, but things are moving at a pace that is frustratingly slow.
Yeah. Are you involved as universities?
We try on the sidelines in terms
Separately?
in terms of opinion pieces and trying to plant a seed.
Sure.
We recently published an opinion piece. Me and Professor Arthur Mutambara is going to speak later on.
Yes.
He's an engineer. He can talk about the inner workings of these things. I always, focus on the regulatory frameworks,
Yeah.
where we called for a commission,
Yeah.
an AI and the law commission
Right.
that would bring people who are specialists in AI, lawyers, people who are specialists in the area of ethics and so on,
Yeah.
to look at the existing legislative frameworks, break them down, see where the gaps are, and how we can quickly fill them. Of course, we have the South African Law Reform Commission.
Yeah.
We say it should stay and continue to do what it needs to do,
Yeah.
but we need that kind of a commission separate from the South African Law Reform Commission to work on these things, because go law by law and fill in those gray areas, otherwise we'll be left behind.
Absolutely. So I was listening in earlier, obviously, listening to the young people who were talking about how AI is changing us, and in the previous panel,
Right.
I don't know if you recall, there was that discussion about the fact that what they are seeing in terms of impact is that young people are perhaps not remembering things as perhaps strongly as we used to in the past because of AI. And I work with young people. What they say to me is that, Mr. G, why would we need to remember these things when I've got my phone? Because my phone lives with me.
Yeah.
I selectively remember what I want because everything is here, which is different from us. Because years back when I was a journalist and I went back and I reported on a story in the rural areas,
Yes.
I needed to remember everything in my head.
Yes.
They don't need to.
Yeah.
It is very different.
Yeah.
And the question then becomes adaptation.
Yeah.
I digress. Let me come to your model
Yes.
framework in terms of what that would look like. And I was making the point because these youngsters will say, well, we don't need to remember everything you will say about the model portfolio because we can put it on our phone. But anyway, let's share.
Yeah, look, as a starting point, we had the Presidential Commission on 4IR that released its report. It made important recommendations. Very little is happening to implement those recommendations. I think that is a good starting point. Now I'm referring to South Africa. That is a good starting point that we need to look at, to fill in whatever gaps and ensure that we've got proper regulatory frameworks in place. And whatever is done in this space is done in an ethical manner. People are not taken for a ride and so on. That would be a good start. The second point I would like to make, that recommendation of having this AI and the Law Commission, not only for South Africa, I think something like that can work for the entire continent.
Sure.
It will play an important role in ensuring that there are proper regulatory frameworks in place.
Yeah.
Another important point, I'm glad Telkom is a partner here. This issue of digital divide is a big challenge. Of course, not only Telkom will sort this thing out, the government has to play an important role. We should not move forward and make progress here in urban areas and leave people in rural areas behind. Data is just expensive.
Absolutely.
In some places, even if you have data, you can't connect, and that is problematic.
That should be embedded in law.
It should be part of this, And there are ways in which, we could deal with this. We could zero-rate certain platforms that are important for communities.
Okay.
That is something. And the last point that I'd like to make here concerns educating people, and that is where institutions of higher learning play an important role, because people fear what they don't know and understand. But once you empower people, then they know the limits, they know, what they are dealing with, then we'll be able to move forward as a unit.
But part of the risk, from what you're saying about ensuring that we are alive to the dangers of increasing the digital divide, is that once you put those into law, you scare away private money, don't you? Because the private sector doesn't want to put in money where the possibility of extracting a return is diminished. Let me put it that way.
Look,
how do we safeguard that?
You could start with regulatory sandboxes, just as a start, on pilot basis, where there could be some regulatory provisions that work with certain players, just as a pilot to see how things can work. And this is something, the beauty of it is that before law is passed, role players, stakeholders can make inputs, comments, and so on at the bill stage and so on. So you make sure you you work with all the stakeholders. Of course, people who want to exploit will never be happy. Then we'll have to draw a line, Do we encourage investors that exploit people, or do we, stand by our principles to say, yes, we embrace AI, but we need to make sure that our people are not taken for a ride.
Yeah. So you and I, as I was saying earlier, were on another platform where we spoke about how to improve the connection between the skills we're getting out of our universities and institutions of higher learning into the work environment. And one of the thoughts that came out of that I really liked, it was this co-development concept. Yeah. Can we apply it here?
Definitely.
Please explain how that would work.
We need to work together. I mean, institutions of higher learning can do a lot, by partnering with the private actors. We can, empower our students, by giving them opportunities to contribute. I mean, we have to use this for a particular goal, Yeah. Here we have to address, especially on the continent, we have to address challenges such as youth unemployment.
Yes.
If we co-create, taking our bright minds and working closely with the private sector and the government towards a particular goal, something that is close to our hearts, as the University of Johannesburg, we say technology should not just be technology for the sake of it, It should be there for ensuring that there is societal impact. We use these technologies to address social challenges in a positive way. We use that to ensure that there is sustainability and people, can be, especially when I say people, I'm referring to the marginalized, and the forgotten people amongst us. Their lives could be transformed.
Yeah.
So that partnership approach should aim for such an outcome.
Yeah. So Prof, if you were to summarize, I'm being told that we're running out of our time. How difficult would you say it is for countries across the continent to put together the regulatory frameworks that will enable us to make sure that we're not just adopters? I think Arthur spoke about leapfrogging, or leapfroggers, as it were. We are part and parcel of developing the frameworks that are required to operate in our own countries and communities.
Yeah, the biggest challenge that we are facing really as a continent is ignorance, honestly. It's ignorance.
So we have a huge mountain to play here in terms of catching up.
Most definitely. Starting with those policymakers that are supposed to come up with appropriate policies. If they don't understand what they're dealing with, then we're doomed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Can I ask one final question?
Go ahead.
Can I ask AI to put together the frameworks for us?
Of course. but then you don't just accept that. You have to really apply your mind and make sure that this is what you want. And it's relevant for our local context.
Yeah, the human being must still take the lead and precedence. Professor, thank you for your thoughts and your time.
Thank you, Godfrey.
Please help me to thank the professor.
Thank you.
Thank you.